Well, good evening, everyone. The time is 8:04 p.m. And joining us tonight, once again, is Heidi Lepke. Heidi is the founder of Shamaya Tantra. And tonight we have some more interesting topics to talk about with Heidi. How are you, Heidi?
I'm really good, Leroy. I'm excited for today, actually. I'm just going to take a minute to share our call
Yes.
to the Edmonton Tantra community so that everyone here in Alberta can watch.
Once again is Heidi Lepke.
And now we're in stereo. So bear with me while I figure this tech out. Leroy, can you make that share for me? Just share that over to the Edmonton Tantra community?
Yes.
Okay, that would be fantastic. And then we can get into talking about today's topic. Tantra and self-love. You ready to dive in, Leroy?
I am ready.
Okay, all right. So this topic sometimes brings up a little bit of stirring when people hear it. They're like, well, Tantra and self-love, but especially the one question, I think I posted it in the chat, or I mentioned it in the preview video, and I had some feedback. I'm not really sure about that. And this was the question: could hedonism be a valid spiritual path? And it raises eyebrows, right? Like, hedonism kind of brings to mind ideas of like eating to excess or drinking to excess and debauchery, and it's hard to associate that with spiritual path. They seem kind of opposite, don't they? We're on a spiritual path, we're keeping ourselves in line and saying no to all of those things. And if we're following all of those things, we must be really far from our spiritual path. But I got really curious about this one day, and I started looking up the definition of hedonism. And I noticed that in the dictionary, there's actually a second definition to the word hedonism. The little known second definition. Here's what it says. It says hedonism is the ethical theory that pleasure, in the sense of satisfaction of desires, is the highest good and proper aim of human life.
Interesting.
What?
Now I'm a huge word geek. You didn't happen to look up the etymology of hedonism? Do you know what the?
I don't know. We should say that for part 2 of this discussion. That would be super interesting.
Hedono. I'm sure it's pleasure, right? I'm sure it's like a Greek word for pleasure or something like that.
Probably. So this got me thinking. Like, could this actually be an ethical theory leading us to the proper and best aim of human life?
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about the pursuit of pleasure and what that really means. And if you think about someone who's going out and, say, drinking a bottle of scotch, is that person's desire, is that person's true pleasure to get falling down drunk off a bottle of scotch?
Mm-hmm.
No, that actually wasn't. That was a consolation prize.
Mm-hmm.
Because what that person really wanted was something that they didn't feel they deserved or had access to.
So the desire, there is a desire as the source energy for the behavior. And I'm kind of seeing it's like rising up, and then it's supposed to go this way, or it's supposed to manifest into this, but something gets crossed or something, and now it's going down, it's being funneled into this other container or something, and now what's
it's this example, this guy or girl who's going out and drinking a bottle of scotch,
mm-hmm.
If they really ask themselves, well, I like to play this game, it's like the 4-year-old question game, why do you want that?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to go and drink a bottle of scotch? Oh, well, I'm feeling lonely today. Well, why am I feeling lonely? I don't have any connections in my life. Or why don't I have any connections in my life? Well, I've actually just been working. Maybe I'm working 12 hours a day, and I don't have time to go out and connect with people. or maybe I've completely dropped my self-care practice and I'm at my wit's end and I don't even have it in me to go and like run a bath and put some essential oils in there, or to meditate, because I'm so frazzled because I've been running myself into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And so this person, if they really sat down and found out, drilled to the bottom of their underlying desire, it's most likely a desire for connection. So that's what the person wants, is connection. But for whatever reason, they've chosen not to give that to themselves. And it's likely there's an excuse about being too busy. But I know for myself, when I say I'm too busy to do something, it just means it's not a priority.
Mm-hmm.
And so caring for themselves or seeking out that connection didn't make it to the top of the priority list. And why is that? We continue our 4-year-old game. It's because I don't think I'm worth it on some level. And it's not a conscious level, but subconsciously, I don't believe that I'm worth that kind of connection that I want, or that if I reach out for it, I'll be rejected or denied. And so if we were to like pull the top off this and see the inner workings, like you said, there's this desire, this very natural desire that arises, and then it gets pushed down. There's like a big no stamp that comes down and squashes it, but that energy, that desire doesn't go away. And so it just kind of reroutes into these consolation prizes. Like, I never truly want to sit down and eat 2 tons of ice cream so that I'm so sick I can't make it off the couch. You know? That's not my desire ever. But it's the consolation prize that I give myself when I'm not willing to go for my true desire. And so the practice here, the tantric practice that I recommend, is to keep peeling those layers. You know, when you want to go do something, check and see, is this my underlying desire? What would I get out of that? What would make me feel really good about that? And see if it's really your desire. And if not, then keep drilling down. You know, I've got this example of a coaching client, and he came to me and he wanted to learn how to talk to women. And so we sat down and we played the 4-year-old question game. And I asked him, well, why? Why do you want to learn how to talk to women? He said, well, you know, I feel like when I can talk to women, I feel more confident. Okay, well, you know, why do you feel more confident? Because I feel like I have a chance of maybe getting a girlfriend. Okay, well, why do you want a girlfriend? Well, I want to feel what it's like to actually have a sexual partner. Okay, why do you want that? Well, when I have a sexual partner, I can actually I can have sex and make love. Okay, well, why do you want that? Well, sometimes I can access this feeling of bliss when I do that. All right, well, why do you want that? And he said, well, when I'm in that place, I feel so at peace. I feel so completely like myself. I feel so connected to myself. And we took it just one layer deeper. And well, why do you want that? And we found that what he really wanted was that union with himself, to feel that completion of himself. And so this whole thread that we unraveled was just to get to that place of feeling completely in union and connected with self. And so sometimes, you know, maybe the most hedonistic thing you can do is go take a meditation retreat. And that can be leading you to your true pleasure. And the thing about pleasure and following those desires is that when I've got a lot of suppressed desires pushed down, that's when I start to become bitter. That's when I start to get aggravated. That's when my fuse starts to get really short and I snap on people. On the other side, you know, if I'm really connected to myself and my pleasure, and I've found those underlying desires, and I've found ways to meet them, I'm more likely to be out in the world sharing that. I'm more likely to have the bandwidth to make an impact, positive impact in the world. And so me connecting to my own pleasure can be a very altruistic act in that way, because, you know, one of the things about pleasure that's interesting is that it requires us to open.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime I'm rejecting my underlying desire, I'm resisting in some way and I'm closing. And so if I'm truly committed to following that pleasure, I'm opening. And when I do, I automatically feel connected to everyone around me. And so it's just not in me anymore to cause harm, because why?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever seen an orgasmic person in the throes of bliss who's like thinking about how they can take down someone else's career? Or like about the person who cut them off in traffic that day?
Right.
It's just, no one cares when they're in that mind state.
So I guess the question that's really, and this has been an ongoing question for me, is like, are we not always pursuing pleasure of some sort? And I guess, so to me, the answer is yes. But then there's some confusion about, okay, I'm always processing some kind of desire. Either I like how things are and I don't want them to change, or I don't like how things are and I want them to change. But like both are desires, right? And both in the short term can be like, this is not what I want. Like I'm pursuing this, but it's not what I want. Does that, I don't know. I feel like I'm confusing myself now.
No, I think I've got you there. And I'm just checking in, Leroy. Have we actually posted this to the Edmonton Tantra?
No, actually I looked at it and I'm not part of that group.
Okay.
And I didn't know which one you were.
I'd love to share that. So let's take a minute. Do you want to check in if there's any questions from the Toronto Personal Growth?
Yes.
And we'll see.
Actually, let me share it
a little
on
running tally.
My side as well.
So now's a great time if you're watching to sink into your seat and see if you can find some pleasure in your body right now. Maybe you can find a more comfortable way to sit while you listen to this. Get an extra pillow.
Just give me one more moment.
Okay. We are sharing live with the Edmonton Tantra community. Hi, everyone.
All right. Let's see if we are back.
I wanted to touch on your question, Leroy, and then we can check in if there's any other questions.
Yes.
So I heard you say, are we not in every moment pursuing pleasure? And I would agree with that. And then you mentioned, either we want it to stay the way that it is, or we want it to be some other way.
Sorry, can I change my answer?
Yes.
So I think pursuing desire, I think, is more accurate for what I wanted to say. But I guess you're right. It does end up somehow, we think we're moving towards pleasure somehow, but sometimes it's making the situation worse, basically. Does that make sense?
Right. And for me, the way to tell is, are you following your true underlying desire, or are you following that consolation prize desire? So if we follow that line of thinking and take it right back to the core, why do I want what I want? In my experience, it always comes back to, I want to be fully connected with myself. I want to feel myself as who I am. Anytime that I am feeling suffering and getting caught up in it is because I'm disconnected from the truth of who I am. And so if I'm wanting the situation to be different so that I can feel happy, so that I can feel pleasure. To me, that's a consolation prize, because the pleasure that I want to feel is the kind of pleasure that encompasses whatever is happening. Like, to actually be able to feel pleasure with whatever is going on.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a great moment maybe to bring up a little bit of tantric philosophy and kind of where I'm coming from in all of this.
Sure.
Because there's a really particular belief system that kind of is the foundation for all of this. And so in Tantra, everything that you see around you, every bush, every tree, every human, every piece of rock is all considered the divine. And it's not like this is divine in the way that this is God's creation. It's like this is the divine in a very literal way. Like, you pick up this rock is made of God. Like, that kind of, this is divine.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like this energy field of the divine, or this organism of the divine has all these different parts and components. And so, a rock might be like the kneecap of the divine, and a tree might be an eyebrow of the divine, and we might be the head, or I'm just making this up right now, so I could probably come up with a better metaphor later on. But all of it is a part of the divine. And so because of that, there's a connection. And there's something in science that's kind of emerging that I find really interesting right now. And as far as I know, this hasn't been confirmed by mainstream science, but there's some theories, some like mathematical proofs that are being submitted right now that say inside one proton is contained all the information of all the protons in the universe.
Is that the holographic?
This is, I don't know. I forget the name of the equation.
Well, it's kind of the same as I was going to say it's a similar theory to like a hologram, where you can take, a portion of the hologram, and then you can shine light through that one small speck of the hologram and get the entire image of the previous image, basically.
Yes. So this is something that's been talked about in tantric literature for a long time in different language.
Interesting. And it's kind of like,
we could think of ourselves as fractals.
Yeah, and it's similar.
And we could contain the whole thing.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that, even in terms of like DNA, how like the same molecule is the basis of all life, and it's basically the same blueprint. It's just like different parts of it are active in different organisms.
Right, yeah, and it's like that with the states of matter too. You can think of the 4 states of matter. What do we have? Liquid, solid, gas, and plasma. And you can think of the divine, or I like to say God sometimes, which is not God in the cloud with a big beard, but God, this energy, this underlying energy field that everything sprung out of and that everything is. And so you can think of God as moving through these different states of matter. And sometimes the divine is in solid state, and sometimes the divine is in liquid state. Sometimes it's gas, and sometimes it's plasma. And in this theory, it's actually more than just the things. It's more than just the content that is the divine. It's also the space that holds the content. So whatever you do, wherever you go, you can't get out of it. It's all connected. And I love this new science that's coming out, because if they prove it, then it's proving what's been in the text for this whole time. And if you think about okay, so what if my goal is to have a valid spiritual path? And how can self-love help me with that? Mm-hmm. Well, imagine that my body's made up of a lot of protons. And if I can connect and fully love myself and those protons that are in me, then through those protons, I'm connecting to all the other protons in the whole universe, to the entirety of the divine. And if I'm completely loving myself, through that, I'm completely loving everything else. So that's like our portal. And because of the theory that we're all connected, we can use ourselves as that springboard to love everyone else, to have that kind of altruistic, kind of serving kind of love. It has to start with me. And if I decide, I've experienced this a lot in my, I guess, where I grew up in a really religious Christian place, that there's kind of this idea of martyrdom that happens. And the holiest, highest spiritual path is to take care of everyone outside of me. And if I get left behind in that, and if I'm not well taken care of, or I'm not taking care of my health, there's almost like a little bit of covert pride in that
status,
because I'm the martyr. I put all my effort and all my energy into taking care of everyone else. I'm the last one, and so therefore I'm like a gold star student in this path. And in the tantric path, it's the opposite. It's really like, well, no, what you're doing is you're shunning the divine. You're abandoning it. You are, in fact, I like to say that in life, in all of life, the one that you've been assigned to take care of above all in this life is you. Like, you're your guy for this life, like I'm my girl for this life. And it needs to start with that, because I was assigned this one specifically and for a reason. And if I do that well, then that flows out and it impacts way more people than if I try to abandon myself and just focus on loving externally and being a good person externally.
Interesting. I have so many questions, but I feel like they open up huge topics. So I'm trying to stay.
We might need to have a part 2.
Yeah.
I'm curious to give questions from anyone watching, because I'd love to take a moment to address those.
No, we do not have any questions at the moment, but I will remind anybody who is watching this on the replay, if you've heard anything that Heidi's been talking about and you do have questions, please make sure to use the comments, because even though the broadcast is over, both Heidi and I we'll see the comments, and if you have questions, we'll make sure they get answered. And also if you have suggestions for upcoming topics that you'd like to hear Heidi talk about. And we've also been chatting about possibly having like a panel or something like that. Maybe not during this time slot, but if you maybe know of someone who you think might be a good fit for a panel discussion, please let me know. I find these types of conversations often open up interesting areas for connections with other teachers and other students as well. So I would love to see some more, any kind of questions about anything that we've been talking about today. So
and we'll be back here next week at 6:00. And so if there's lots of questions, or you want to hear more, or even better, if you completely disagree with this, then we'd love to hear that and continue exploring and unpacking a little bit of this.
Yes, and I'm very interested in continuing the conversation around self-love, and specifically I'd like to, well, as a possibility, how, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the word correctly, equanimity, am I pronouncing that word right? Or equanimous? Yeah. I find that to be a very paradoxical term when it comes to love, right? So if you've truly entered a state of love, then I would think you have this like abundant equanimity, that basically everything that is happening, you're fully embracing and somehow participating, but not interfering.
Well, the fact that you exist is interfering.
Good point.
I mean, you're a part of it. So when part of an organism moves, all of the other parts feel that reverberation. So there's an automatic interfering that's happening.
Right.
Yeah. And love, if you sit down and ask yourself, what is love? And you go really deep into that, you'll find that, or you may find, I found, that there's nothing that's not, especially in the tantric philosophy. It's a non-dual philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that there isn't like these things over here are good and these things over here are bad, and this is separate from this.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very comprehensive, integrated philosophy. So things that are often considered separate in other philosophies, like right and wrong, or even birth and death, or especially spiritual and material worlds, are just parts of the same organism. Mm-hmm. So we could say, one is the plasma state of love, and one is the ice state of love. Mm-hmm. But it's all love. You can't get away from that. Mm-hmm. And so one of the homeworks that I'd like to leave, if you want to try this on and check it out, is see if during your whole day, if you can connect to your pleasure in some way, in whatever situation you're in. So let's say you're in a business meeting and it's just really stuffy, it's going on forever. Well, can you find something in that room to really appreciate and to really get pleasure from? And pleasure, this is such a big concept, and my good friend Beth Ostrander talks a lot about the idea of pleasure, being a pleasure coach. And we talk about it often, and it's like we think of pleasure sometimes in a really narrow way, where it involves maybe sexual pleasure or maybe food pleasure. But actually, I believe pleasure is our natural state of being. Everything in our life is meant to be pleasurable. Mm-hmm. And in Tantra, that casts a wide net. So even things that cause pain are learned to be pleasurable. And I know it sounds crazy, but maybe you've had this experience, or you have a friend who's had this experience of having a really tough heartbreak and having their heart broken open. And if you choose to take everything as pleasure, and you commit to that, and you commit to following that underlying desire, then the potency of heartbreak is like a bullet train taking you to your delicious core, taking you to your essence. Mm-hmm. And it's actually possible to feel like deep pleasure from a completely broken open heart, because it breaks you from your contained core into this openness, which means that you're connected to everything else, and you start to access this pleasure even in the hard stuff. I know it sounds ridiculous and maybe unachievable, but it's a result of the tantric path.
Something that's coming up is I forget where I read it once, but like sometimes when you're in the depths of that suffering and pain, I doubt you can actually choose. It just happens sometimes that you can just appreciate like how sensitive these like human organisms are. Like we can have such depth of pain, and like to think that like it causes water to like leak from our eyes. Like it's again, like it's not something you can actually like force, but there is, and I've been lucky to have felt it a few times, where you can actually appreciate that, wow, it's such amazing that we can feel this depth. It doesn't really console that much, but there is that slight separation that, wow, I can actually appreciate something out of this experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no separation. Like getting a promotion at work is a sacred experience, and getting fired is not. They're both an experience of the divine.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this phrase by Christopher Wallace. It says, "Whatever is happening right now is as God as it gets."
As God as it gets.
As God as it gets.
Yeah.
And if that becomes your mantra, and then how can you separate that? Some things are positive experiences, some things are right experiences, some things are experiences where we can feel connected to ourselves, and others aren't.
Mm-hmm.
That's just it's a false belief system.
Mm-hmm.
That's the dualistic way of thinking. And so imagine that the ice, I'm trying this one on the fly too, this new metaphor. Ice is something you don't like ice, but you like water. And imagine, if you told people that, you might sound a little bit crazy, because ice and water are the same thing.
Mm.
So how can you hate it in one form but love it in the other form? And maybe you have a preference. You might say, well, I really enjoy water and I don't. Ice is just a little bit cold for me. It's a little harder for me to enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
But you would never want to just say there should never be ice again in the world, because then how are you going to make your smoothies, and how are you going to go skating, and how are you going to chill your food so it doesn't rot and go bad?
Mm.
And so if you can learn that, you can start to think of ice and water as the same thing, and then automatically knowing, well, if I love one, I automatically love the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's just starting to learn to appreciate it in its different forms.
I like it. I think you should stick with that metaphor.
We'll keep that one.
Yeah. Took it out for the spin.
Right.
I think it's good. It's a keeper.
Smoothies are important. Yes. Well, I think we need to wrap up for today. But I think, we'll see what the feedback is like, and maybe we'll continue with part 2 for next week.
Yes, I would definitely love, like we said, for anybody to give us some questions, some suggestions. Is there anything you wanted to talk about for the Edmonton folks? Any upcoming events or news of any sort?
Yeah, there's a few things in the works that will be announced soon. And there is a couples course coming up starting July 31st in Edmonton. So 4 weeks of tantric date nights. Each one is like its own little magic carpet ride into experiencing other parts of each other. And you'll get to do the playful side, connect with your partner's playful side.
Yes, I was just having an idea that you should, even though it's for the Edmonton community, you could post it in Toronto and see what the interest is for a similar type of workshop. Would that make sense?
Yes, and actually I do have a surprise for Toronto, because I am going to be bringing this course in November when I visit.
Ah.
So you will get a chance to experience this. If you have a partner, it can be a new partner, an old partner, and it's interesting to see the sides of each other and the different alchemies when you are having very different experiences or accessing different archetypes of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So each one is like its own little adventure.
So will that be 3 different workshops when you're in Toronto?
It's 4.
It's
4. 4 week.
So there's going to be the Tantric Speed Dating. There's going to be the Tantra 101. Mm-hmm. And then the Couples Date Night.
Couples Date Night. And I'm also going to bring the first level of my full program. So I have a 4-level Tantra program. And I'm going to bring the first level. It's called Exploring Tantra.
Nice.
To Toronto. So this is an amazing way to really dive in. And every week you get to connect to this part of you, this part that's really connected with your senses, and start to experience yourself as the divine, and practice this self-love that we've been talking about.
I don't know what happened just now, but all of a sudden a whole bunch of people just popped into the broadcast. So I don't know if there was something that was stuck, and now it's just allowed us to see who's joined. So I just wanted to say hello to Linda, Evie, Sandy, Cleo, Marta, and Emrys. Thank you all
Hi,
for joining
everyone.
us. And like we had said, if you have any questions, we're actually wrapping up right now, but if you have any questions, please use the comments because Heidi will see all of them and she will answer your questions promptly.
Well, semi-promptly.
Time is just a concept for us.
Yeah. Well, thank you to everyone who is watching, and I look forward to next week and connecting with you all again.
And
thank you so much, Leroy, for being the host with the most here.
You're very welcome. And thank you, Heidi Lepke. Heidi, once again, is the founder of Shamaya Tantra. And she'll be joining us once a week for the next couple of months. So
Yay.
Lots of time to dig into a lot of cool topics. And yes, have a good night, everyone. And we will see you next week.
Night, everyone. Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.